here as again, you've got an opportunity here. The Lucian Nami still very powerful in 13.3. They are going to go with the Varus, so you would imagine right now the NIP are going to have to try and take away the Ashe. I think this is why I find it so much, so interesting in terms of like LCK versus LPL in terms of the draft purely, because it's like obviously in the LCK right now the meme is you give over Zeri Lulu, they get Lucian Nami, you take Wukong, they get Vi. That's just kind of how it is, but. In the LPL, we've kind of come up with this new adaptation and kind of said, okay, well, we're just going to go ahead and ban 3 AD carries. We're going to take this, but if you give away the Ashe, then the Ashe Varus is still super powerful. You can't take the Lucian Nami into this lane because it's just not going to work. So little small adaptations that I love seeing from the LPL that just try and make the draft phase that little bit more difficult to try and navigate for certain teams. And it does feel like we are still putting heavy emphasis on those big kind of, flex carries. Because again, it can be the poke Varus. It can be an on-hit Immortal Shieldbow Varus as well. So these are the kind of picks that give you flexibility in the draft and let you kind of go for it. And then Annie gets locked in here for Pinzi.
Yeah, there you go. So Pinzi locks in the Annie. Now, of course, it's a flex pick still. We had, was it Showmaker or Chovy? I can't recall which mid laner in the LCK ran the Annie. Actually, no, I think it was Chovy that was playing into the Annie. And yeah, it's Annie, right? It's one of the oldest champions in the game. We all know what it does. It's more about what AL are actually going to get done with it and where they're going to place it, whether it's going to be SwordArt and whether it's going to be Ping-Z. We'll have to wait and see. For now, though, Ninjas in Pyjamas, they see the other side of what Anyone's Legend have locked in, and they just go, you know what? We're just going to take up the Jax here. I was actually going to suggest they go towards ZDZ champion pool, ban away 2 top laners just for safety, now that you've got that Jax blind, but they've gone towards the Leona, so that's kind of a call out, and they're saying, we don't feel like this Annie is going to be going in the bottom side. We feel like it's going to be going mid.
Yeah, I believe it was Chovy who played it earlier today, I believe. In their series. Yeah, we have a bit of an hour break. I like to watch things, not really else to do. I got to be at my PC. So I think it was taking it into the Gragas, which we have been seeing quite a bit for the LCK, kind of, Annie Gragas kind of coming back into the meta. It shows how old some things are. I will never forget the times of Gragas one-shotting people from a million miles away, but it isn't to be at the moment in terms of the Gragas, but we'll have to wait and see. Jax locked in, as you mentioned, for Invincible. And this has been something that has been definitely a silver lining for NIP. Any of the highlights, any of the big plays that we have seen from NIP honestly have come from Invincible on this Jax. He's very proficient at the champion. He knows how to build it, and he knows how to move forward with it, kind of, making sure that he's able to get the most out of this champion, both in terms of the damage and also just being able to tank up so much for his AD carries. Yeah,
exactly. Dream. I'm dreaming, apparently, of Invincible doing crazy things on this top side map. He's got 10 unique champion picks so far. How many of those have been tanks, Oisin?
Ooh, I'm going to say 5?
1.
Wow,
Just the Sion,
okay.
A lone Sion game. Other than that, pretty much everything else he's played has been a damage carry, unless you count Renekton as a tank. But, we've seen what Xingqian's been making of that champion. So, yeah, I'm not going to call that a tank. NIP, they're going to pick up the Ryze here. So, a lot more side lane pressure as well. Mid lane matchup. Potentially one where you're going to be able to get a fair amount of priority. LeBlanc is going to be taken on the opposite side. So, Anyone's Legend kind of just see this sort of can be passive in the early stages mid-jungle here of NIP and just kind of slam the assassins. So I'm expecting Xiaohao and Ping-Z to really be active from as early as level 3, looking to try and shut down Dream in the mid lane and effectively try and move to sides off the back of any plays that can get done ahead of Dream and Xiaolong Bowers. Anyone's Legend will pick up the Sion, so kind of surprised that NIP didn't go towards 2 topside bans to try and sort of nullify this topside. Sion going to be able to kind of scale up for free. So is the Jax, though. So it's going to be about how Anyone's Legend actually shut down the Jax and how Anyone's Legend use the Sion and how tanky he is, because there's not really a tank buster on the side of NIP. So ZDZ is going to get to a point where he is nigh unkillable. As NIP, they're going to go towards that Kalista. So it's a double AD carry bot lane. I'm expecting Kalista will be in the hands of Photic just because of how proficient he is at the champion. But, of course, very flexible to both sides.
Absolutely. Plenty of options available to you here for NIP, but also I'm just purely off the cup. I love all the blue. It's very aesthetically pleasing coming out from NIP. A lot of blue coming out. A little green there, or teal, I suppose, for Photic on the Kalista.
They're all blue, but they're on red side.
Mind blown. You know what?
go.
That's why we pay you this is why we pay you the big bucks, Jamada.
This
is why we bring you into this kind of
How hard does anyone legend try to press this mid jungle advantage that they can potentially try and find for themselves with very strong skirmishes between LeBlanc and Wukong? And how do NIP kind of shield that? And also, what are they going to do with this bottom side matchup, right? Annie Varus as a duo can be kind of obnoxious, but when you've got the double AD carries, and especially when one of those AD carries is Kalista, you expect that the skirmishing is going to be super powerful. So I really want to see Xiaohao move down towards the bottom side, NIP as a whole try and facilitate this bottom side of the map and try and push them ahead so that this Anyone's Legend bottom side becomes a little bit less oppressive and they can try and move this Kalista around the map once those neutral objectives start to spawn up.
Nip putting themselves on the bot side, making sure they gain priority here as SwordArt and Betty just back themselves away. You don't really want to be using your first stun of the game here super early for AL. You want to try and keep that holstered in the canister to make sure you don't lose something else off of that. It is going to be the Comet Varus, so it is going to be lethality. So again, they're looking for pure damage in that mid game. They're looking to catch NIP out maybe around these dragons or even something else before they can really make something work for themselves. And for NIP, they're happy with just the way things are going. They're going to get themselves a top side start. Both junglers actually starting on the top side, so they will be following each other throughout the wing. And this is a common strat, actually. I just wanted to kind of quickly hit it. We are seeing a lot of teams with the Ashe kind of say, look, if we get behind you just because of her passive on her auto attacks, you aren't able to do anything. So this is a really, really cool move here from NIP. They're not going to fall for the side of AL, but again, something that we've always seen now for the last while is just this movement to kind of make sure you're getting that advantage if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Really cool attempt at cheese there from NIP, but also really just as impressive read from the bottom side of Bay and SwordArt. So good job from both sides, just kind of recognizing what the strengths and potential weaknesses are on both ends, as Invincible's just going to eat a full charge Sion Q. Nothing to see there.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that was avoidable.
Yeah, just walked up to him. It's like, yeah, I can tank this, no problem.
You know what, bro? You took a bad trade. Take it back. All right, go on. We're equal.
So I don't expect we'll get much action out of that top side just because we're talking about him. Might as well stay on topic for a brief moment. Like I said, however, I feel like ZDZ will get to a point where he's going to be pretty unkillable. So NIP are going to have to work kind of hard on that front, and this will get a nice trade as we do pan back up towards the top side of the map again. But yeah, I think Ninjas and Pyjamas rather going to be quite happy with that top side matchup, where they're going to have a Jax who kind of just gets to scale up and become that side lane monster, become that late game threat, as Xiaohao hunting out for some information on Xiaohao, but he's not going to find him. You will see the red buff's gone, so that could be enough information potentially to call out, but that sweeping planet doesn't quite catch them.
No, it doesn't, but a flash for flash, and then another one to follow. Zhuo has nowhere to go, and this is the issue you have with the Ashe. She is very immobile once you start getting over. Photic is putting a hell of a lot of spears into people, but isn't level 3 just yet. So there we go. Maybe feeling like he could have gone a little bit more aggressive, and still has plenty of power in that early game Kalista. But nice moves there from AL. And again, you don't hit the Scryer's Bloom. It gives you a false sense of security. But now Xiaohao maybe looking for a dive in the spot side. Very difficult with the decoy. Don't really think he's going to be able to make that stick, so he's going to take away the Krugs instead.
Yeah, just going to take away the Krugs, but what unfortunate timing for NIP. It rolls 20s for AL, though, as all stun. Photic, he's got both summons.
He has both summons, and he's going to have to use one of them. Because you can't cleanse a piercing arrow, but this is the power of the Annie right now. We're seeing why it's coming back so much is because you have just a point-and-click CC at level 1 effectively because of the way your passive works. So having that onto super immobile, kind of aggressive carries like the Kalista and of course the Ashe. When I say immobile, I mean no insta-flash or insta-dash away. Means that it's very dangerous to be walking up aggressively without any kind of real plan of escape.
Yep, absolutely. Annie, the grandmother of, well, she's quite young, and she's a child, but in terms of the scale of League of Legends.
Yeah, she's one of the OGs. She's one of the original, I think it was like 20 champions or something.
Yeah, and she was one of the original champions that would very commonly in pro play shut down a lot of the mobile champions that did exist back in the day. There weren't too many, to be fair, but that was one of her core strengths. So now where we live in a world where there's, what, 160 something champions and pretty much 80% of them have dashes baked in. Does great here to shut down a lot of this, as Invincible kind of getting pushed off this wave as much as ZDZ can afford to do. Kind of stays within that 3 CS margin anyway, and both tops will just take that recall. So again, SwordArt, Betty doing a really good job of just pushing off Photic and Zhuo for now. And I expect to see that continually happen with the Annie.
And all is calm.
I was getting worried as shit.
I know. I always forget. It's like I won't lie. I'm a big fan of just leaving open air. I like it. I like just kind of letting stuff happen. However, when you're casting from two different, countries, over a call, it just kind of sometimes go. Wait a minute. Is he there? Is he gone? What happens? I don't know what's going on. So I try to give it as much as possible without, obviously giving too much fear to my co-caster. It's hard though.
I know. Like, especially, of course, there was the storms over in Sydney. So when we had Jake and Kitty casting the other day.
True, actually,
still in my head a little bit. I was worrying about that. But,
no storms here, just grey skies.
We're just grey skies. Feels UK and Ireland, man, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to say, feels Western Northern Europe, man. But, well, with the priority nip, have got themselves on the bot side. I was actually going to mention there very quickly that, despite the first blood going over to AL, they are actually slightly behind in terms of the AD carry farm, because it is just an Ashe and a Kalista. You have plenty more poke versus the Annie and the Varus, funny enough, in the early stages of the game, because you just have a better way to put it is a less committal poke is probably a better way to put it. Yeah, they're able to make the most out of it. So Dragon goes over to NIP. That's a nice little singular Dragon to get. Plenty of good late game stats should they ever need it. And we might be going towards a Chem Soul, because that next Drake's an Ocean, and we'll have to wait and see, Jamada.
Yeah, the best Rift in the game. Not quite the soul. Individual dragons can be pretty powerful. I actually feel like that's the best part about having a Chemtech dragon on the map, is actually just the individual dragons. Once they're stacked, all that shielding and healing power can be pretty noticeable depending on what champions you have in the game. Say for NIP and Anyone's Legend, to be fair, there's not going to be too much healing going on, or shielding for that matter. So hopefully that's not the case. Get something like a Hextech or an Infernal. Let these two really scrap it out, Want to see NIP and AL really throw hands.
I feel like an Infernal would be so powerful either of these compositions. Like it's like when you get someone like a Ryze who like on a Jax, it's like, oh, they have ramp up damage, late game monster, but then it's like we're also gonna add in burst for some reason on top of that. It just feels pretty oppressive to say the least. Xiaohao is just kind of dominating on this bot side. Look at the vision you can see on the minimap there. Just pink wards. So much just available to the side of NIP to say, look, we know where we are, we know where we need to go. And now SwordArt, he is in no man's land. He does not want to be here, but Xiaohao just recognized that he doesn't know exactly where Xiaohao is. Know where he is now, and dives himself over the wall, but that's where the little things come in here, little small moments here. This has kind of been a bit of a stickler, in my opinion, for NIP. They haven't had that killer instinct, that, trigger pull to kind of go for something. They seem a little bit hesitant a lot of the time to make sure they're not making a mistake. And at the end of the day, indecision is a decision upon itself, as this is the last time, actually, it's been, 2,392 days. The last time we had an Annie in the LPL was the 7th of the 8th, 2016, as we do see the bit of trading in that bot side. Ooh, Betty. Don't know whether that one, Chief, but yeah.
They don't know.
Been a while since we've seen an Annie in the LPL.
Yeah, it has. It's weird to think that 2,000 plus days ago lands us in 2016. We're getting old, Sheen.
I don't know. Well, you're fine.
Well, I'm
hang
spring
on.
chicken.
Never mind. Felt like that was a little bit more there, but there wasn't to be.
Zhuo's about to hit level 6 in the bush.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, there we go. He has it now, but didn't have it just as we go there. Cleanse used instantly. Kind of expected now. It doesn't have as much impact when you're doing it literally in front of the enemy.
Yeah. I was expecting him to maybe just stay in the brush, no vision, and then just throw it out. But either way, still gets the cleanse out base, so can be able to be picked once that cooldown comes back up. But to sort of go back to what you were saying, agreed. Photic and Zhuo haven't really been stopped in terms of this 2v2 pressure, right? Even though Xiaohao, if we're kind of talking about like a criteria that we set at the start of the game, we did say we want to see anyone as a legend try and shut down the bottom side a little bit. They sent a gank its way, but it's not really stopped it from maintaining an over 20 CS lead in the 2v2. So NIP pretty happy about the state of the bottom side of the map. We wanted to see them attack the mid lane in Dream.
Oh, they're looking for him. They're going to get a little bit of a heal, but one more auto attack is good enough. And this is the combination you talked about. You highlighted this Wukong and the LeBlanc coming into this mid lane, how powerful it can be post level 6. They're making it work.
Yeah, and now as well, there's no flash on Dream. It gets so much easier to try and get on top of this Ryze and lock him down. All it takes is Pidgey finding the double chains, and the Wukong damage will follow through and very easily deal with the very immobile blue man. So we'll see whether or not Anyone's Legend can try and take advantage now of the fact that there is no summoner spells on the mid lane, and whether or not NIP are actually going to try and cover it. I think it could be a very, very strong way for Anyone's Legend to try and get a little bit more tempo back into this game, right? They actually have a little bit more gold. It's not a sizable gold lead by any means, but they've not taken up any neutral objectives, right? They lost the first Herald, they lost the first Dragon. So for Anyone's Legend, you want to try and see them find some of these more proactive plays now, because they've got the tools to do it.
I do have the dues. I do want to have a slight correction to my 2,900 days since the last Annie. It's actually 2,900 and I think it was 83 days since the last Annie support, specifically. Coming into this leg, because I do believe Scout played it earlier this week against BLG in the last series. So
get your Mandarin reading skills up.
I know. I'm sorry. You know what? This honestly, this is like why I shouldn't even attempt to try and go for it. I try to use context clues, but it's just not exactly it. That's why Kitty is OP, man. Having the dual language skills is awesome.
Having a native speaker is very, very helpful. Also, Kitty's just awesome in general, so doubles out and helps a bunch. We are all noobs. We don't speak any form of Chinese at all. I'm sure of us. Well, actually, Hysterics does a little. Right?
I was gonna say Hysterics is a little bit. I know how to ask for one of something or maybe two of something. That's about it. I point at it and probably butcher the language as I say it. I see engage on the bot side. Oh, dodges one, flashes in, misses. Cleanse comes out from Photic anyway, just to make sure there's going to be a realm up to make sure that Dream can be a part of this. But a lot has been used there. Both cleanse used by, not both cleanse, just the one cleanse by Photic. Flash burnt by SwordArt and his ignite. He looked to try and make something work. PingZ trying to see if he can get some. That's a lot of damage already with just the Luden's Echo, or Luden's Tempest, I should say, finished up. And now with Dragon pretty much free here, AL, they're building a bit of momentum right now, Jamada. And this is kind of tantamount to how we expected this composition to work for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So great sequence of plays here for AL. It looked really, really sketchy from the NIP perspective. Herald's going to have to get dropped in the mid lane now. I think it's about to time out. So Anyone's Legend are going to have time to respond to this, as well as get the Dragon. So really, really big win. They got the Summon the Spell, Flash out of XLB, and Photic's Cleanse could mean he could get picked off quite easily. The question is, are they going to be able to stop the Herald? They've got 3 men here, but the Judge's still going to go through.
Yep, we'll get the charge. Don't think Dream got any of the gold there.
It all goes to Sejuani though, so I feel like Anyone's Legend are alright with that, to be honest. Not going into the back pocket of that Ryze. Feels good, man.
Stopping it is best. It's one of those moments where you're just kind of like, this is the best result we could have looked for, as ZDZ gets himself his own plate on top side. And actually ZDZ, interesting enough, is actually coming out ahead on top of this laning phase right now. Has himself about a 10 or so CS lead and a plate or so, and has built the Sunfire alongside the Brambles. So he's ready to fight the Jax. The Jax ain't going to do anything. And honestly, this is kind of the adaptation we have been seeing from a lot of the LPL teams, is that when you do go with maybe a double AD carry bot lane or such, you can just pick a tank up topside, and he will just tank forever. That is not an exaggeration of just how much he can just deal with something like an Ashe, a Kalista, and a Jax trying to take him down. I have to say, PingZ seeing if he can maybe go for a trade here, but XLB is waiting off in the wings and finally reveals himself. But again, even with the distortion being used, you have the second distortion, then you have flash. It's nigh impossible to really make this one stick. You can even see that PingZ recognizes that and says, look, I'm gonna make this one hard for you. You're not gonna get a lot out of me here.
Yeah, don't forget the passive smile. I have an old hatred for LeBlanc. Not to, make everything about me. Me.
Hey, I talked about Senna earlier.
You talked about Senna.
You can have your. Senna wasn't even in the game. She wasn't even here.
True. Yeah. That's how much Senna bugged you. But Chains Corruption. A lot of damage could come through.
That's a lot of damage going to be used there. Heal does come out from Zhuo as they look to try and burn him out. They have to use the Kalista ultimate to save the support of NIP, but now XLB is underneath the tower and not really a lot of places to go. He's being corralled. He's being pushed into a corner and shot down. Super easy kill to pick up there for AL, and bit by bit, little by little, they are burning into this mid game, knowing they are just stronger.
Oh boy, that's such a feels bad moment, man. Photic gets out there early doors, pulls his support with him. All of a sudden, poor jungler left alone underneath the tower against 4 people. And it was Legend. They get the first tower. They get the bonus kill as well from Xiaohao. I guess boars on the menu. A little bit of bacon as I'm getting a replay of it. That's just sad, isn't it? As yeah, Photic just barely clipped by the Chains of Corruption. Eats a whole bunch of damage from the Empowered Arrow. And he just has to step back. Sees that Zhuo's in a bit of trouble there from Pinzeech. Pulls him out. And XLB just doesn't get the memo, I suppose. And
yeah.
Unfortunately,
breakdown of
kind of just retreats
communication.
to the tower. Doesn't back up or try to back up, right? You've got Pimsy and Xiaohao right there. They both have all of their tools, so maybe just thinking, I'm safer underneath the tower. However, Betty and SwordArt were waiting on the other side with open arms.
I will say the heal was used by Zhuo, and on the second replay there that we got of it, didn't actually heal Photic anyway, shape or form, so a little bit unfortunate. But we have a pause as we come back out of this one here. It's just a quick kind of check on where the game is. Right?
Bar of execution, what has to then be met is finding, you know, mid-game advantages to actually then go on to close out. So there is still that expectation on anyone's Legend that they will have to close out this game with the lead that they currently have. And NIP with things like the Jax, the Ryze, you know, the scaling, it has to be said, kind of feels like it's on their side. That 1-3 run potentially, or the threat of a side lane presence from Invincible and Dream is a very, very real threat. So for anyone's Legend, answering that is going to be paramount to finding a little more success after we sort of brush past maybe the 25-minute mark or so in this game.
And there's a question for you, because obviously dragging up in just under a minute, do you contest this as NIP? I feel like you're as you just mentioned, you're happy trying to just scale up, get these items going for your teams, but you know, do you expect to see them look for something, or just to keep going the way they are?
I feel like anyone's Legend are gonna answer that for you, maybe. Chain stun.
They're gonna look for it. You can flash, but everybody is here. Actually, good arrow to stop.
He might have another Q. There
I was gonna say, there we go. One more auto attack.
Oh.
Pinzy does pick him up. Took a lot, in fairness. That was 2 flashes and a hell of a lot of ultimates, but it ends up doing exactly what they wanted to do, which is picking off that side lane.
Yeah, you know, he could have even maybe autoed backwards there. Flash. Forced out for Xiaohao to get the Divine Sunder healing. And now anyone's Legend just turning this into a snowball play. They find the bottom side pick. They get Invincible off. They've got the Herald. They take the mid lane tier 1. And now they're going to be able to get that Cloud Dragon as well. Really, really, really strong set of plays back to back there. And ZDZ even gets a massive chunk out of that tier 2 on the bottom side for himself. So all aces for anyone's Legend. NIP feel like they were never going to contest this dragon anyway, but anyone's Legend just kind of throw a jab and a straight up hook off the back of it to ensure that NIP absolutely do not look for anything off the back of these plays.
Let's have a look at the replay here again, because it took so long for them to take down an Invincible. This is the scaling that you were talking about, but it's not quite there yet. He doesn't have those bruiser items to really make this work.
No, he doesn't just yet, right? It's just the Divine Sunder. I was wondering, I see he cancelled his auto attack. I feel like he would have died anyway, but maybe hard cope. The Divine Sunder healing could have gotten him across the finish line after a near Mission Impossible escape.
And we come back. NIP looking to contest around this bot side jungle, while Pinzy's up on that top lane. Does have TP, in fairness. We haven't seen any, to be perfectly honest, TP plays coming out from either side. No one really looking to flank as of right now. We'll have to keep an eye on that for Invincible and Dream later on in the game. But for the moment, happy to kind of come for wherever they need. A 4,000 gold lead, 4 kills to the good. And this is where the mid game starts to get a little bit hairy for NIP. You will have the late game, you know, side laning, but that late game comes in 4 or 5 levels time. You're not quite there yet, and being level 12, 13 versus the Sion and LeBlanc, you're just not going to have the resources available to you to try and stick at that and, you know, make that advantage known to yourself. So curious to see what they're able to kind of do as Invincible is probably caught out here and probably just dies, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, they have so much single target CC with the Cyclone as well. And I mean, that kind of just sums up NIP this entire game for me. This is just them nonchalantly walking around the map, not really expecting anyone to be there, and then not having a counterplay to, you know, to make a punish. Yeah,
it's been a little bit lackadaisical from the side of NIP this game. And, you know, I feel like we wanted to see AL get really aggressive like this, find these plays, and they've been doing it all game, and they're looking now.
Yeah, see there, SwordArt almost goes down, but doesn't quite drop just yet. XLB so close as well. That was a 4v5, but it was underneath the tower. You can see that NIP really trying to make sure they don't have to use any more summoners than they have to. They didn't actually use any in that last skirmish whatsoever, but SwordArt did lose his flash, and everyone kind of backs themselves away. And this is where AL are recognizing, look, we have to try and make things work. The longer we leave this, the more opportunity we give them to kind of get back into this game.
Yeah, and, you know, Anyone's Legend finding that potential positive skirmish without some of their biggest tools available for the team fights, right? Chains of Corruption, Cyclone were both used in their pick-off of Invincible. Imagine if they had them there in that mid lane. That would have been NIP losing a couple members. Hell, I think AL could have even maybe turned towards the Baron if they really, really felt like it after killing off the Sejuani. But yeah, I mean, it just feels like NIP are sat on their hands. Kind of just, you know, on a picnic day, looking at the clouds. Is a cloud rift. It's on theme. And they're not really thinking, you know, head empty. And AL are kind of just taking advantage of the situation.
Not a thought behind those eyes.
Right? It kind of feels like NIP don't necessarily see... They don't feel like they have a condition right now, and they're just kind of hoping that their champions will get to a point where they'll scale for the side of Dream and Invincible, and then they'll fight. But problem is, we're almost 25 minutes in, no second item completed just yet. It's on the horizon for both the solo laners, but certainly not there yet. And Anyone's Legend have just continually moved around the map in quick succession and found picks, taken towers, and the map is really, really open for them to continue to do that, right? The more open this map gets with picks like LeBlanc and Wukong, the easier it gets to find picks. And now Xiaohao in his own jungle,
yeah, just can't.
Which isn't really his own jungle, gets forced off his own camps, and it's just going to continue to happen. The space is closing in here for NIP.
I mean, it's frustrating to watch right now because you're trying to make this one work for yourself. You're trying to say, like, you know, oh, we get the 1-3-1, doesn't want to use the cleanse. Betty, maybe baiting in XLB a little bit there, but very late cleanse. He thought maybe he would have been caught out just a little bit more there, but it does feel just very frustrating watching this as an NIP fan because it's not even as if they're doing, you know, they're making stupid plays, or they're going off and getting, you know, kind of like, you know, they go for it all in and it doesn't really work out for them. They're just doing
It's
nothing.
arguably worse. Yeah, it's arguably worse. Oh, Finji, not stop distortion. My name's LeBlanc. I don't get picked. That's how that works. Yeah, they're just not really up to much. So it looks like they're ready to fight. Everyone's at 2 items, so this is a pretty critical moment because even though they're down several thousand gold, take a look at the inventories, they're actually at item like completion parity. So this is one of the few times where NIP are going to be able to fight Anyone's Legend on even terms, and they're in the river first in front of the dragon first.
Yeah,
but AL have the engage tools.
They have a Kalista, so they can burst this one out. They can secure it, and they will. They get the Ren stacks down, and they get that particular skill for themselves. Now the fight can really happen. As you can see, Pinzi needs to run away, as he's not really in a position to fight this one anymore. Good fights coming out here for NIP as they finally get themselves in a position to look for something. There's the Realm Warp going to deliver Dream and XLB right on top of it, and Xiaohao gets himself the kill. Dream almost goes down, finally finished off as ZDZ flashes himself away. Still very tanky.
So tanky.
And now he doesn't have to worry about any kind of magic damage. He is just looking at attack right now. Invincible goes in, flashes in, gets himself the counter strike, and they can make this one work for themselves. You can see not having the mana. Oh, ZDZ so close to going down, but you can see just how damn tanky this man really is. They're looking for one more arrow, but it shall not shoot to the hearts of NIP. Everyone's still kind of very, very low. It ends up being a 2 for 2, but the dragon goes over to NIP.
Oh my god, so many things going on both ends there. Teleport's coming in. It's going to stop Zhuo's base, but will they find the Sejuani?
They will not find the Sejuani, but they definitely will find the Ashe. So this is going to be a kill confirmed here by ZDZ as they make it a 3 for 2. Not quite able to get the Sejuani on the back side of it, but AL making the most of a bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, Dragon secured here by NIP, which is massive. It stops the soul from soul point from being secured. As yeah, Invincible forced off to the side, but look how much damage is returned to the backline of AL during the majority of that fight. I think a lot of it came through a massive overload splash from Dream. Xiaohao gets flashed onto after that realm warp, but look how tanky ZDZ is, man. He just can't be killed, and this is why I was kind of calling maybe for NIP after they locked in the Jax to just go for 2 protection bans, something like that Sion. Removing it off the table is great, but Jax here, Invincible, massive Counter-Strike flash forward, but ZDZ, again, in front of 4 members, isn't dying. Now, XLB, he doesn't have that same luxury that ZDZ has.
No.
He's not quite as tanky, and he will be taken down on the side lane.
He is not, so
that's right.
That's a big pick, though, because without a jungler, they may look to try and just kind of force down this Baron. They can see the pings coming out right now. NIP will have priority in that mid lane. They are up to level 15 on their solo laners, but this could just be a force. Oh, Photic, you can't walk up to that anymore. You need to be so careful. ZDT playing bodyguard, but then you don't really have someone to tank this Baron right now. Zhuo getting poked out as well. Both the bot laners down to about half HP, 6,000 HP onto the Baron. As Dream tries to keep away from the LeBlanc. He is fairly tanky at this point in the game. The Baron taken very low, and NIP are not going to contest. They recognize they just can't do it.
No one can get through ZDZ on the bottom side, and Pinji just doing a really great job of kind of just playing disruption right behind the red buff, and NIP just don't have the time to actually even contest, get near the pit itself. Even though Anyone's Legends Baron takedown is quite slow, still managed to pick that one up. Very happy. And they can return to the map. And that Baron buff, and it's just the base insights. They've knocked down all 6 towers outside of the base. So Anyone's Legend going to happily siege up here. They've got the poke Varus. And Betty is on 3 items, even as a Serpent's Fang. Just to be on Spike right now.
Here we go. They're looking for another fight here as they jump straight in, get the double knock up. XLB, you can't take those fights for too long. You have a little bit of armor. A little bit of magic resistance, but you're not really the tank you need to be right now. Without having that front line, they're just going to rock up to the front door. There's nothing you can do here. You need Invincible to be able to threaten this backside.
Yeah, but the problem is, he just can't. He's on the side lane right now. He's just cleared out a bunch of waves. He has to reset. He has teleport. Maybe he looks for a flank angle to break up this sequence of plays, but with Anyone's Legend just retreating, looks like they're just going to rotate to a side where they feel like they can just grab another inhibitor because they got that mid one on effectively 1 wave. NIP not able to defend that one at all. The wave clear pretty limited, very short ranged. Anyone's Legend on this bottom side wave now, and NIP, they've got to find an answer, otherwise they're just going to end up losing this inhibitor as fast as they lost the first one.
Gonna have to go for something. XLB has healed up, got himself back onto the map. As you can see, ZDZ just moving forward. Nice preemptive move there by XLB to make sure that the Pinzi did not gain favor. As ZDZ doesn't care. ZDZ is literally just walking forward to get that tank, goes in with the ultimate to get himself a little bit more tankiness, and they're just running through them. They're just punching them straight in the face right now, and NIP have nothing to say about it. They just kind of said, all right, we lose ourselves a tooth because that's just how this one is. Ashe arrow goes completely wide, and AL might just end the game here.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to look for it, right? Baron's still up. ZDZ is full health now that he's teleported back in. Flash blown. Pyjamas just looking for a pick. Get the second inhibitor. There's another wave in the mid lane. That's a flash forward.
It is, and Invincible just can't hold on any longer. Zhuo gets spit back out and eaten right back up. AL in total control of this game from minute number 1. It felt like they had an opportunity, they had a team, and they executed on it so perfectly.
Really well played here by AL. I mean, it has to be said, ZDZ gives over his life to ruin his KD at the end of the game. That it felt like NIP were asleep at the wheel, and simply AL just said, "Oh, okay, sure, we'll take everything that we can." And it's a really awkward game to even analyze because Anyone's Legend were effectively just picking up free breadcrumbs with no pushback at all.
Yeah. I mean, it really was. Oh, hello. There you are.
Hi. I sit down when I cast.
You know what? That's totally fair. Yeah, it just, again, it was so frustrating to watch for NIP. Great for AL, but they were never contested. There was like 1 or 2 moments where NIP actually went for a fight. The Dragon Pit is obviously the big one I'm thinking about, where it was relatively even coming into it. But then again, they just fell into really poor habits and just kind of said, cool, Invincible's the only one who can threaten the Varus on the backside. We're not going to have him in the fight. You lose an inhibitor, you lose another inhibitor. They just run forward at you because they're kind of going, cool, we're so tanky now with this Sion, we don't care. It just felt like right there, NIP, and it's been a theme throughout this split for them, is that they're not making these hard-cut decisions. They're not making decisions in themselves. And as you mentioned, that can sometimes be worse because you're just not doing anything then.
Yeah, you know, it's one of the things as well that you push as a coach, right? When you're sort of getting a team to try and be on the same page, one of the first things that you do is try and erase that sort of, it's contextual, right? But we'll say lack of trust for the context of this conversation. And you just say, as long as everyone follows the call, it's better that everyone makes a call and follows it, as opposed to people doing loads of different random things, because then you all look silly. And it feels like NIP just never made that first step at all to even make a call in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you know, indecision is a decision in itself because you're not doing anything, therefore you're not doing anything. You have decided that is the course of action you want to go for. But yeah, this was just not what you would be expecting to see from a team that came from such high highs in 2022, and really does feel like a pretty sharp fall from grace for this team. There were slight moments where Invincible was able to get on the backside, but outside of that, like, you can see the damage there. The bot lane for Photic and Zhuo, it just never pulled the trigger. It never felt like you used the advantages of this very, you know, hard engaged composition. Like, think about it. You have a Kalista and an Ashe, level 6, and you could see the observers were expecting it. They were zooming in on that bot lane going like, here it comes. This is where they're going to explode. And they just didn't. Or if they did, it was very discoordinated. It was very, you know, not connected to each other. And it felt like it was just more like solo queue players going for something, waiting for their teammates to react.
Yeah, you know, we highlighted what we wanted to see from an IP, specifically from the early game, and sort of that, you know, level 6 through 9, 10 mark, which is usually sort of the first 15 minutes of the game. And it felt like Photic and Zhuo, even though they were getting their own individual 2v2 lead, because let's not call it what it wasn't, it was a 2v2 lead in the bottom side, right? But SwordArt were struggling to keep up in resources. NIP never made the first punch down there. It was always Xiaohao who was first to the play, and Bao didn't really get any easy access either to find picks onto Bay, onto SwordArt. And it's, again, going back to that sort of same theme of frustration for NIP. They were never really looking to leverage some of the early advantages they could have yielded, and it felt like they were relying and waiting too heavily on the solo lanes to get to a point where they were ready to fight. And Anyone's Legend just took full advantage of that and snowballed from start to finish excellently and clinically.
Yeah,